Hello there,
Hi.
Remy.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, mate. Good morning. It's very early over here on,
I'm sorry, it's afternoon over here.
mate, no worries at all. You've made a very weird movie.
Yes.
The, the editing process must have been a bit tricky. What were the challenges there?
Well, of editing it, yeah. So the actual filming process, we had a lot of trouble and a lot of issues had come up. We got shut down for COVID, and a couple of scenes and kind of major plot points got lost during the pivot was coming back.
Right.
So, when we were in the edit, it was kind of this big jigsaw puzzle of almost rewriting the story and trying to make it, flow and make sense. And yeah.
What about the dream sequences and so forth? Did you have like any days that you missed out on because of COVID or weather or anything? Because it's such a
Yeah.
you got a lot out of the independent movie. It was great.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, so we had shot 13 days and we were supposed to shoot 16. So there
Right.
were a couple of scenes that were lost and some moments that were kind of made up on the spot. The dream sequences, though, those were always kind of part of it, and we had tried to kind of see if we can use those in the edit to make more of a like a linear story. But they ended up kind of just working as they worked, and yeah, it was an interesting process to really try and work with what we had. We had a couple of reshoot days, but other than that,
Yeah.
it was just how can we make this work in the best way possible. Timing is always an issue, and
Yeah.
obviously the movie's a bit short, but I think it worked in our favor where it helped the story just flow. There, sorry, there's no wasted moment really, in my opinion.
No, you're right. I mean, there is no wasted moment. You got a lot out of this movie. It's
Thank you.
entertaining, but there's a sense of dread right from the start. Were you interested in Charles Manson in general or true crime history? Is that why you took it on?
Yeah, I've always loved the true crime genre. I was always a big noir fan growing up, and a lot of the
Mm.
shows I watch now and a lot of the movies I watch have always been, mafia, crime, that kind of world. I didn't know a lot about Manson going into this though, and I really, it was a learning process for me. I watched a lot of his interviews. I read a lot of books about him, I became really fascinated with him as a person and his effect on society, not just with the whole murders, but
Oh,
where he was in California, Laurel Canyon. It was such a big music scene. You had some of the biggest artists coming out of it, and he kind of single handedly shut that down when he
right.
when he went and murdered Sharon Tate. So he's just fascinating.
You used like real news footage in some of the movie too.
Yeah,
Was that hard to get, or were people, offering
it,
it
it
to you? Was it
was.
in public domain, maybe?
No, so it wasn't. And neither was we used his music throughout most of the movie as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Both were challenges, but both were the music we felt really elevated the the kind of the cult's power and just really put you in the world. It's a Charles Manson movie where Charles Manson's not in it.
Mm,
So you want to bring as much of him into it as you can. The news clips I think really helped establish who he
mm.
was, right off the bat. It was almost like a little like a pre into the movie of like, a crash course of who he was. And it was a little tricky. Nothing's really easy to get. Everything costs a little bit of money. The
Yeah,
music was interesting though because he recorded it with the Beach Boys,
he did.
but someone in his estate owns the music, so it's like, okay, how do you buy this music without paying the Manson family?
True. Yeah, that would have been a bit of a challenge. You don't want to endorse them with the money.
No, no, it doesn't look good.
No. You were an intern at Blumhouse, correct?
I was, yes, I was.
Is that when you started to think, well, I want to be a director, or did you ever want to be an actor or be another kind of filmmaker? Was it always going to
It
be
was
directing and writing?
it was always in that world, yeah. When I went to school, film school after I worked at Blumhouse, and it was a lot of camera work and lighting. I thought for a second I'd like to be a DP, and it
Yeah.
was always, am I going to direct? Am I going to do cinematography? And I love both, but I felt like directing was was a little bit of everything, where I could kind of put my hand in a little bit of every department. And I enjoy like leading that kind of leading the crowd and leading the group and working together.
Yeah.
But Blumhouse was a great experience for me, and it really helped me, with this job, because all I did for a summer was read scripts, and it was coming off of the Split and Get Out releases. So
Okay.
they had thousands of scripts that were being sent to them.
Yes.
So I think I read about, in the summer that I worked there, I think I read like 120 scripts. And it's really easy to see what makes a bad one, but it's really interesting when you read a good one and you're like, oh, I get the difference now.
Oh, you would. And I mean, I've spoken to Jason before, and he gives young filmmakers a chance. So I'm really
Yeah,
glad that you came through that system.
thank you. Yeah, it was cool. I got to meet him a couple times, and it's a really interesting setup that they have over there, because it's really small, so you get to know everybody and you
Yeah.
get to be a part of every department. When I was there, it was they were talking about developing the Purge television show, or they were talking about, I think, Happy Death Day, like all these movies that have now had several, sequels, were
Yeah.
just getting started.
Do you think there'll be a sequel to your movie, The Resurrection of
Uh,
Charles
I,
Manson?
I, if it is, I don't. I'm out. If it is, I won't. I'll watch someone take on that iteration. I think there was some weird juju when you work with Charles Manson.
Yeah, well, I'll get to that on set, but maybe what you should do now is something completely different. Look for a
Yeah,
rom-com or a musical.
I was just talking to somebody about that. How like the early 2000 rom coms don't exist anymore. Maybe you bring them back. It's funny. I was never a horror fan,
Right.
um, and this kind of sparked my interest in it. And I think for now, I'd like to stick in like the true crime thriller
Yeah.
genre.
Okay.
Um, that's kind of where I'm trying to push things right now.
I'll get to a couple of actors that you work with who impressed
Yeah.
me in the movie. But while you were filming, other than COVID and that setback, were there any weird things that happened? Did something strange happen? Were there anything
Oh,
like
it's funny. I could tell you
were the
every day.
ghosts of Manson there?
I really think there was an energy that we almost had with us the entire time, because when I tell you every day
Hmm.
something went wrong,
Oh
and it
no.
could have been something really small, as like, someone was a couple hours late because of a freak, traffic thing, or we got shut down for COVID, or we had somebody quit on us, but they took the key to the equipment truck back to LA, or we were shooting in the desert, which is its own obstacle, because one day it's
Yeah.
beautiful and there's no wind, and then another day there's 40-mile-an-hour winds, and you have to figure out how to shoot outside.
Yeah.
So something went wrong every day, which was exhausting, but was a great lesson, because it was constant working on, like, pivoting and working on your feet and trying to fix these unexpected problems.
Now, down under, we have some very dangerous animals. So I think filming in the desert, did you come across real rattlesnakes, real scorpions?
Rattlesnakes are an issue. And coyotes, but rattlesnakes we were in like rattlesnake season too,
Yeah,
so like it was, be careful when you're walking out. We had someone ready with rattlesnake antivenom, if we needed it. But
good.
yeah, rattlesnakes were the big one.
Catherine Hughes is one of your actors I wanted to point out. She
Yeah.
goes through lots of different personalities in it. Were you in charge of the casting, or were they presented to you? Because Sarah was great too, Sarah DeMont.
Yeah, so Sarah came through a recommendation. She was a friend of some of the producers. Catherine Hughes, though, interesting story. She came on with, I think we had an actress attached, and the actress before her had dropped out within like 5 days of us coming to shoot.
Right.
So Catherine jumped on like very early, like very quickly, and jumped right into it. And I had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun working together, and she's a great collaborator. She's always comes with like a lot of interesting ideas, and she had a lot of interesting takes on the character. And you're
Yeah.
right, it is a very like all over the place kind of role, because she's almost playing two different characters, while not trying to give up, this big twist at the end. So she was great. We had a lot of fun working with her.
Yeah, watching it a second time, you can see signs of
Yeah,
what she's doing.
and that was fun too in the edit because when we were editing the movie, we were like, this it's such a big part that you want to drop those little moments of if there's a second one, you're like, oh, she's not doing this or she's doing this. So you're editing. We were editing the movie almost to building her up of this twist.
Like I said at the top, your editing in this movie is fantastic. It's really
Thank you
noticeable.
very much.
I love how it's fragmented.
Thank you very much. It was a lot of work, so that I really appreciate that compliment.
You're welcome. Now, what kind of a director are you? Do you walk around with a loudspeaker and point your finger, or do you just let things flow?
Oh no, it's funny. Because I was always working on sets. I was a PA, like literally up until we shot this movie in March
Yeah.
of 2022. I was working as a PA up until January of 2022. Like when we went into prep, I stopped work. So I love being around people on set. I
That's
love,
good.
constantly collaborating with everybody. And I hated Video Village because I love to like be behind the camera, like watching, like standing, like bothering my DP and operator, like standing right next to them. I enjoy it. I've always had a blast on set. I've grown up on sets,
Yeah.
so it's where I feel most comfortable, and especially being like in the middle of it and just collaborating with makeup and hair and the grips and
Yeah.
anybody who I can talk to about really elevating a scene or elevating an experience. I really do love just being with everybody. I didn't do loudspeaker though. I couldn't. I would hate to hear my own voice like that.
What about a director's chair? Did you have a director's chair with your name on it?
I was told I had a director's chair. I don't think I ever sat in it though. There was one on set. I'm such a pacer. Like,
Right.
when something's going on, I have to constantly be walking. I can't sit down.
Yep.
So I was told every time we went to shoot somewhere, there was a chair for me. I don't think I ever sat on it. I think I would sit on the ground before I sat in the chair, just because that's where we were shooting.
Yeah. Oh, good move.
Yeah,
What about a cameo? Do you have a director's cameo in the film?
I don't know. Someone asked me about that, and I was like, I'm too focused on maybe on the next one. On this one, I was so focused on not messing up that I was like, I
Sure.
just want to see, I want to watch every moment of every scene.
At the beginning, the scene is in a house, and I noticed behind them, in the scene on the wall, is like a poster of VHS covers, maybe of old movies.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was fascinating. I was pausing it and looking at the movies. Is that
that's
something
cool.
you
That was
own?
just a fun piece of art that we had in that apartment. It's kind of just a big white room, so you're like, okay, how can we make this interesting?
Yeah,
And that was just a fun little piece of art that we were able to put in there. But no, there was no intention behind, no little secrets behind the movies that were chosen.
right. Yeah, no, I wanted one. I think it looked great, so I
It
spotted
looked awesome. Yeah, it's one of
it.
our producers has it, and I was like, oh, it's such a cool piece of art.
Yeah. Now I have to get to working with your dad.
Yes.
Did he put his hand up straight away to be in this movie? Did you have him in mind? How did it work out that you
You
collaborated?
know, it's funny because he had obviously known that I'd been, working on this movie as first I was just working on the movie as somebody helping with script edits because there was a director attached for the longest time. So,
Okay.
he would watch me work on it and try to help produce it, just do whatever I could. And then when it started to pick up that I might actually be, the director dropped out and it was like, okay, I can throw my hat in the race. And I was interviewing with the producers and a bunch of people. And then when I got it, he was like, well, I have to be in. And it was great though. And, obviously it helped us a lot. And, I learned how I work. I've learned just from him.
Mm,
So how I prepare and I've watched him and he was very hands off. Like he wanted to me to either succeed every day or if I had to fail, then get myself out of it. There
that's
was
so
a
good.
couple moments on set when he came that we had a real big kind of hiccup that happened that caused a little bit of on-set drama,
Oh,
and
okay.
he was there for it luckily, and I was so at that point so kind of just beat down from it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and
Yeah.
he was able to step in and kind of be the big dog on set, and
Mm.
it was great to fall back on him when I needed to, but for the most part he was very hands off, and we had a great time working together on set. I mean, we had a lot of fun. It was really easy. There wasn't a lot of work that went into it. Obviously, like, it was cool to watch him. I've
Sure.
always watched him work, but then to watch him work in like a peer setting where we're working together was just a
Yeah.
really great experience. And we would laugh a lot of the time and look at each other and be like, "We're doing this together." Like, it's kind of ridiculous.
Well,
Like, I'm telling you what we're gonna do right now.
yeah, well, I see two things in that. One, that you are best mates with him. You're really good
Yeah.
friends with your dad. And two, that you could probably text him. If something's going wrong, you could text him and he could come into the set or help you out immediately,
Oh yeah. Yeah,
which
that's
is good.
exactly honestly, that's exactly what happened. When I was going, it was kind of like walking into the line of fire this one day where I had to go deal with something, and
Yeah.
I texted him. I was like, "I'm coming back. Like, I might need backup." And before I could even get there, he was like waiting. He's like, "All right, what are we doing?" So yeah, we had a great time.
That's so good.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you said you've been on set with him around the world. You've been around the world traveling and watching him work growing up.
Yeah, I've gone to watch. I grew up, actually, I grew up in New York, so a lot of the travel was coming out to LA to watch him work. But
Sure.
I've gone with
Yeah.
him like to Atlanta. We went to China together. He did this movie in China a couple years back.
Yep.
Um,
That's
and
great.
I worked on a show he did, Kingdom. I worked as a PA on that for 2 seasons.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've always just been around, some version of working with him or being on set with him or working as an assistant for him at that points.
Yeah.
So I've really picked up the do's and don'ts, and a lot of how I work is just from picking up what I've seen him do and what's successful.
Well, you've got talent just like your dad, so keep up the good
Thank you.
work. I can see it. I can see it happening. This little movie of yours is getting a release around the world. Like, here I am talking to you from Australia. Defiant are releasing it down under. Why should people watch your movie, in your own words?
I think people know the Charles Manson story, and it's very predictable. When you watch a lot of movies about Charles Manson, I think you know the direction it's going to go. What
Yeah.
I love about this movie and what attracted it to me was it's a different take on the genre. It's a what if almost of what if this cult was still around today, and what would they be trying to do?
Yeah.
I don't think it's much of a traditional horror. I think it's almost this thriller romance that then picks up towards the end.
Yeah.
And I hope that it's just a fun, kooky ride. I mean, it's about a cult trying to resurrect Charles Manson. It's not a serious
It's
movie.
out
Like,
there.
we wanted it to be weird and goofy, and all of the characters are a bit odd, and everyone feels a little bit off. So I hope people enjoy that ride.
I think the name Charles Manson in the title will put people off, but then
Yeah.
once you realize that it's a little bit different to what you see, and that opening 10-15 minutes, it is sort of like a romance drama because
Yeah.
she wants to be an actress, so you're
Yeah, and
relating
she's
to it.
seducing this guy. You realize that, like, oh, she's got a plan going on,
Mm,
but you realize she's really, they're trying to. They seem just like a young couple in love trying to make a dream happen, and then once night falls, things
yep.
really take a turn.
Well, there you go. So you've got all the hallmarks to make a rom-com in the future. A fun
Exactly. It could
rom-com.
have been a rom com. We could have edited this to be a rom com.
Well, to wrap it up, what's up next for you, Remy? Anything that you can share, any exclusive or anything that you've got on the agenda?
Nothing in particular right now. We're going through a writer's strike over here.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, of
So
course.
there's been a lot of meetings kind of just about future next steps. There's a couple of like little thriller scripts that I've gotten, but unfortunately nothing is set in stone yet, but just working as hard as I can to get something going soon. So
Well, I hope we see you down under. There's a lot of
I
productions
would love to.
happening down
Yeah.
here.
I have family in Griffith.
Oh, great. I'm on radio
Yeah.
in Griffith. That's where one of my
Okay,
stations
yeah.
is.
Yeah, I have extended family. When our family way back when left Italy, some of them went to New York, some of them went to Australia.
Oh, fantastic. All right, Remy, thanks for your time this morning, mate. And
Thank you so much.
I hope I get to meet you in person someday. Keep up the great work.
Definitely. Thank you so much.